everybody. This is Haven Ditko, and I am a Second Life creator and teacher, and I have been asked a lot of times about making games and how to do that. So I'm going to show you in a video series how to make a game. Now, I don't know exactly what game I'm making yet. I have no clue. We'll just kind of go with it as we go through these things. But the first thing about learning anything is learning about the software that you're using. So I'm going to do a small little tutorial on the Unity software and how to get started on it. And what you see when you look at it and what the different components or aspects of the interface are. I'll also do one on Blender. Blender might be a couple of them because there's a few more things that we want to get in there because, of course, we're dealing with modeling. And so when you first click on Unity, I'm using Unity 5.0, and that's because it's the latest one that they have. And like I said, it is free, so you can use it. The differences between the free and the pro, there are a few, but hopefully we really won't run across any of them that's going to cause us any kind of troubles. So that's a good thing. When we use Unity, we have to realize we're not just making an object, we're not making a texture, we're making an entire environment, we're making a project. And the projects are stored on your hard drive, and when you create a folder, and you name that folder as your project folder, Unity is going to take all the components of your game and organize them and add folders and subfolders and anything you need like that to keep it all organized in one place. So the first thing that we need to do is create a project folder. So when you first open up Unity, the screen that you see on mine is what you're going to get. And what we're going to do is we're going to click on New Project. From this new project window, we can name our project. So we'll call this Game Tutorial. And I'm going to, instead of browsing for a place to save this, I'm going to save it in its default location for me. I just found that that's easier to do. We do have a choice down here as well. Are we going to be making a 3D game or a 2D game? Do we want 3D assets or 2D assets in it? Assets are something we're going to cover in a minute, but when you decide to start bringing in asset packages, you can click here and get a list of default packages. What I have listed here are more than defaults. I have extra packages actually set up that I can call upon when I begin my projects, but we're not going to use any of them, so don't worry, just go ahead and don't even bother clicking on that. After I get my project named and I have the place set for it, I can click Create Project. Unity's going to open, and there we go, we're all set. So when you look at it, there's not a whole lot. You don't think that this can do too much because when you normally open up a program, there's tons of windows and tons of settings and menus and all that other kind of stuff. So it's kind of nice to come in here and there's not a whole lot right in your face right away. But what we do have are a bunch of views. Most programs will call these windows. In Unity, though, they're called views. The first view that we have is this center one. And in this center one, as you probably guessed, is where we create everything, where we have the visuals all put together and we can see what we're doing. This window is important to understand a few things like how to get through this, how to navigate through this, because not everything is just done from one view like this. The first tool that we have available to us is this manipulator over here. I'm going to add a cube. Please don't worry about how I've done this yet. You don't even have to remember how it's done. I'll explain that all later. But we have a cube here in our scene. And X, Y, and Z are our axes. So X is red, Y is green, and Z is blue. A lot of ways, people use a lot of ways to remember it, but I always do X, Y, Z equals RGB. So X, Y, Z, RGB, red, green, blue. So when you have this open, you're also in perspective view, which means that the further away something is from you, the smaller it gets. And that's really a lot like real life is. Things are bigger when they're closer to you. When it comes to modeling and placing things, though, I like things in a more 2D, realistic type of feel to it. So under this gizmo here, this widget, this manipulator, we have what's called perspective label here, and that tells you that we are in perspective view. If we click the very center of this and it turns yellow when we hover it, you'll see that we go into ISO. And ISO is isometric. For those of you that know what orthogonal is, it's the same thing. It's like a 2D representation of a 3D space or object. So it looks very 2D, even though it still is 3D. Now, as far as these little cones go, they show you the axes, of course, and if you click on one, you're looking into that axis. So if I click the X, I'm looking into it, okay, along the X axis. It's as if X is coming out of my nose and going straight away from me. If I click on Y, then the Y axis, I'm looking down into it, okay? And the same with the Z. I'm looking into the Z. You'll also notice that if you do cam around a little bit, you're looking into it from the point, okay? So if I click red, I'm looking into the red point. If I click Y, green, I'm looking into the green point, okay? What we also have when we have this is the opposite side. Now, we've chosen the Y axis, and right now Y is looking from the top to the bottom. We cannot switch from bottom to top view. Basically, we cannot look along this direction from the top view. So I don't want that to be confusing. I'm in Y view, top to bottom, and you'll see it says top here. Well, I can't click on a bottom view. It's not here. It's kind of like behind this cube, actually. But if I click on the Z or the X or any other one, you'll see I now have my Y here. And now I can click the one opposite of that, and you'll see that I'm going to get a bottom view. Okay? So X here is right side view. If I want left side view, which is the opposite, I can click on any other one and then choose the one opposite the red. Again, here's Z axis, and I'm looking into the Z. So in order to look on the opposite side, which is going to be from the back, I have to click a different view first and then opposite the Z. So now I'm in back view. And these are really handy. These give you straight looks at things, and we like to have that a lot of times. It helps with lining stuff up. The other thing that I like to do is show you how to cam around. And camming around is when you click down your right mouse button and drag your scene. You see how you can just drag it around like that? Now you're going to notice that absolutely nothing is actually staying still. Everything is kind of moving around, all right? Now, that makes it hard if you want to build on the cube, because you cam in on the cube and you... Actually, mine's not doing so bad right now. But normally that cube would be like moving everywhere. And so, yeah, it's not doing so bad right now, which is kind of fun. It's good for us. But let's say that, you know, as we do this, we can't really focus on the camera right now. Do you see how the camera is moving all over the place? All right. But if you click on it in this window here, all right, we'll talk about this one in a minute. But if you click on it here with your left mouse button, or left mouse click on it in the scene view here, and then hit F on your keyboard. F is for focus, and it focuses on the item that you've got selected. Now when I cam around, that remains completely centered in my scene, and I'm focused on it. So now if I left click on my cube and hit F, I'm going to focus on my cube. So when I cam around, I'm camming or rotating right around this actual object. Another way of getting around in your scene is by using your middle mouse button, and that allows you to push and pull things to the side. Okay, just push and pull your whole scene over. You're not moving an object. You're moving the whole scene left and right, up and down, or kitty corner. Another thing that you can do is if you have a 3D mouse or a 3-button mouse with a scroll wheel in the middle, you can scroll in and out to zoom on things. And if you hold your shift button or your alt button, you'll see you get this eye. And when you have that eyeball icon and you right mouse click, you can zoom in and out really nice and fluid. There's not a whole lot of jumping between the stages like you get when you do the scroll wheels. You can see. Shift will also make your movements a little bit quicker, a little bit smoother. There's less steps to take in getting where you want to go. So you'll want to practice camming around in your scene and panning around in it and zooming, because really once you are able to get around in your scene a lot quicker and smoother and with less frustration, your projects are so much nicer to work with. Okay, so that's how we get around, and that's F for focus. You'll want to write that little note down. Yes, I'm in ISO. There we go. Okay. So now let's talk about this first view over here. This is what's called the hierarchy. And the hierarchy holds all of the items that are in your scene. So if it's in your scene, it's over here in the hierarchy. And again, you can click on any of these items to have it selected in the scene window. What also happens, well, before I go there, these things are related directly to your project. These are not on your hard drive. They are not things that you're bringing in to work on. These are things that are in your scene. And in order to save them in your scene, you need to be able to go up to File and save your project. Okay? So right there, Save Project. That's the hierarchy. And in here, when I sometimes talk about typing, making sure that you label everything first of all, but when you label it, you want to make sure that you type it right. I'm the typo queen, and I have the most trouble with this. I'll type the name of something so fast, but then when I come up here to this search window and I type it in to find that object, I can't. And it's because I've spelled it wrong or I was careless with my typing. So the search window is nice to be able to look for the things that you want to look for, because this can get rather full. What we have next to this is a create button, and we can create a few things here for our scene. And when we create them for our scene from here, they will also be listed here in the hierarchy. This create button is a lot like the game objects button. Game objects seems to have a few more items in it, but you'll notice that these up here on the top portion are the same as this menu here. Alright, so that's the hierarchy, and again, these are all project related items or objects. When you click on any one of these items, what happens is you get this inspector here loaded with settings and information. This actually comes in about 2 parts, maybe 3 parts. The first portion of this is the top, and this is the same kind of settings you're going to have no matter what you click on. So if I click on the cube, I've got a place here where I can rename it, or I can leave the name as it is. I can add tags to it or put it on certain layers. Those we're not going to talk about just yet, but you can rename this. Not only can you rename that here, you can rename it in this window. Now you want to click twice, but not double clicking. Double clicking focuses, just like the F key did, will focus on that item. But if you click it once to select it and click it again, you'll have the ability to change the name of it here. Whether you change it here or in this field up in the inspector window, it will affect the other one. So we'll just call this game object just so you can see. And as I changed it here, it changed on this section or in this view. What we have next is transform, and this is where it's placed in the world. According to the world, this is where it's at. 0, 0, 0, of course, is absolute center. This, you can set a rotation to it, so you can turn it around on any of or all of the axes. And scale is its size. 1, 1, 1 is its default size, which means it is just one unit, one measurement, okay? Underneath these settings is when we begin to have individual settings, components that belong to a cube, this cube only. Every single cube, every light, every camera, every tree, bush, character, everything can have its own settings over here, okay? And so you can get very detailed on what you're doing or what you're making. We'll go into some of those things later on. But this is the inspector window. So you have the general settings on the top. You have the component settings underneath. You even have the ability to add components to your object, whichever object is selected. And again, you can search for it by typing out the name of it or expanding the little windows here and seeing what pops up for you. The other view that we have is called the project view. And this is where it holds all of your assets. A lot of people will call this the actual asset view. In this view, this is where you can store things, bring things in. There are things that are within your project, but they are not actually being used in your, or they don't have to be used in your scene. Remember at the beginning when I said you can open up that 3D or 2D asset place? And you could call on packages of assets to be brought in. This is where they would all be set. These are actually stored on your hard drive, which means you can use them for anything. You can bring them into another project if you want to. When you bring them in here, you're going to find that they all get listed in this little window, and they do list alphabetically. So when they come in, make sure that you name them like you want to, again, so that you can search for what you want with a lot of ease and not be frustrated by it. Assets can be brought into this window simply by dragging and dropping them from your computer browser. If you do something like that, I would suggest always creating folders. So here I have this create button, and I can choose to click that and choose to create a new folder. Or I can right click on this assets folder and choose create a new folder. When I get that one in, I could call it, let's just call it materials. Oh, actually, you know what? We're going to call this one scenes because we'll need a scenes one later on. So those are my scenes, and now this folder is within the assets folder. If I click on scenes, I can create scenes, and they'll all be stored in here, okay? So you always want to make a folder when you can, and then that way it helps keep things very organized. Also, when you click on things in this window, you will also get items in the inspector pop up. As you can see here, I just have a folder with nothing because there's nothing in that folder. All right, so now the assets. There's another place where we can get assets besides our own computer, and that is from the asset store. And the asset store is where creators of assets, and assets are just game components, where they sell them or give them away for free. And you can get to it going through unity3d.com. What I like to do though is I like to begin opening up my asset store here. If I click on favorites and I choose all models, you'll see that I get search assets, selected folder, asset store right here. And I can click on this. And what happens when I click on that is items that are in the asset store appear here on my screen. And I can go ahead and I can look and see what I want. I don't want any of these. I can hit the more button, or I can go down to this section. This section is paid assets, which means they all cost you something. If I click on it, it's telling you that this is $20, and that's American money. It tells you the publisher, the website where it comes from, the name of it, just all kinds of information. You can choose to buy it by clicking on this button if you want. The top section are free assets. When you click on them, the price is free, which we always like to have. Again, the name of it and who makes it, the publisher. And again, Unity 3D is the web link that comes up here. So that tells you that it comes from the Unity page. What I really like about this though is that if you see something that you like, you can click on it. If you don't see anything you like and you have an idea of what you want, we can come up here and we can type in what we want. Now I know that we're going to be making a terrain, so I'm going to put terrain into this window and see what pops up. Right now these are materials. I'm not really interested in a material. I'm more interested in objects for my terrain. Maybe some trees or plants or grass. And so I'm going to keep clicking. And you know, I just don't find anything I like. Oh, wait, look, here's a few things. Here's a bush. Here are some trees. Those are looking nice. Here's a willow tree. I love the willow tree. So I'm going to click on the willow tree. And I get over here all that information, but I also get import package. Remember where it said buy before? Now I have import. I can click on this. And when I do, I get a pop-up window. Let me pull it over. And, well, come on, here it is. I keep losing my little window. Okay, and it's importing a package called Terrain Assets. Now, you're going to notice that this tree does not come alone. Most of the things in the asset store do not come just with the one item you see. It is part of a full package. And right now I am importing the full package of terrain assets. So it's almost done. And when it is, it's going to decompress it. This will close in just a moment. Oh no. And here we go. We have the ability now to scroll through and see what all the different things are in that package. I can at this point choose to import all of them, hit done, and then only click on the few that I want, or again I can click all, and then I can click on the import button. I'm instead going to hit cancel. The reason I'm going to hit cancel is because I want to show you something. Instead of importing package, what if I clicked open asset store? So I click Open Asset Store, and this is actually what pops up for me. Let me resize it a little bit so that we can see all of it here. Alright, the store, Asset Store, actually opens up to that item, and you can see at a glance some of the things that it contains. Well, basically all the things that it contains. And I can choose to import it here. Now, what if I clicked on a different tree, let's say the bush, and I open the asset store? I find that that is actually part of the same set here. Do you see that? This actually has 12 trees and 12 bushes in it. It's just the one that you clicked on here that shows up. Okay, so, and I guess that's because this way you can see, the different things like the size on it, and you can see the version of it, things like that, individual parts. Now, let's say that this didn't come up with anything that I liked. I could always do a search for things. I could type terrain up here and search for terrain items. So let's do that real quick. And now I have a bunch of terrain stuff, but some of these are paid for, some are expensive, and some are free. Or I can come down here to top free, and here are the top 10 free items that people seem to like and use. And in here, there is a terrain assets one. So I'm going to click on that, and it's that one that I like. We keep coming back to it, huh? So now I can go ahead and click import. This will again do all the things that it did before when I did import package in the Unity view. So I'm going to import it this time though. And I'll move this window away. And we'll just wait for that to get done. So it should just take another second here. Lots of stuff coming in. But this is where this can get so loaded with items that you really do want to keep this as neat as possible. So I'm going to click on Terrain Assets. When I scroll open this little twirly thing here, you'll see now I've got bushes, grass, rocks, textures, and tree ambient occlusion. If I can open that, there we go. And I can click on trees and materials and textures, and there's the trees. So you can see also when you click on one of these, you get all this information up here on this as well. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just close that up for now, and let me expand this. Also, you'll notice when you click on items, you get a preview of it down here in your window. So let's see. Oh, a few more things to show you before I close up this video. Here is a hand icon, and when you click on this hand, it does what it was doing when we were panning. Remember when we just panned around and moved things around with our middle mouse button? Now we can do it with our left mouse button. If we click the second button, we get the 4-directional arrow icon, and we can start moving our asset around, our game piece around. When we choose the 2 double curves here, that again is the rotation widget, so we can rotate this along the axes, and you'll notice that the numbers here are changing as well. The fourth one is about scaling or resizing. So you can pick any one of these 3 axis handles and resize your cube or your object. If you hover the center and grab it, you can scale the entire thing up and down, which is handy. Now, if you wanted to say scale this in only 2 directions, you can use the last button, which is like a cage. And now you see the cage is going around the cube in this manner, and when I click on it, I can scale it up and down and side to side in every direction except from the front to the back there. If I cam around, you'll watch that change position. Do you see that? Now I can scale it in these 2 directions, but not this front to that back. And the same holds true if I were to look at it from a top view. I now can scale it wider and longer, but not deeper. The other 2 buttons up here are center and global. Center is, do you want to rotate or do anything manipulating to this based on this where the center of the object is, or based on where the pivot point of this object is. You can also choose to move things either along global axes or along local. And you'll see that just changes slightly. The direction of this one, watch. So this is pointed more straight forward this way according to your object. And with global, it's going to be moving according to the world. We will get into our other buttons and menus and stuff in the next section. We'll start getting into some of them. So have fun doing this and just practicing a little bit, camming, panning around. Get yourself that terrain uploaded, the assets uploaded or imported, because we're going to be using them in the next one. And I will see you shortly. Have fun. Please subscribe and like the video. If you like it, let me know with a little thumbs up, and share and subscribe as well. Thank you.